My name is Tim Neubert. I'm the president of Neubert Aero Corp. We're located here in Clearwater, Florida. Welcome to NAC. We manufacture safety products that are used for airport construction projects or airport safety, from friction equipment, safety barricades, closure markings, to GIS software programs for tracking safety operations on an airport. Well, my involvement recently has been to be introduced to the racing and try to integrate our technology that we use with a marketing program that would fit well to promote both our products but also pursue my interest in aviation. From the Formula One to try new technology for the wrap that we used for the Formula One to the jet, trying to evaluate new technologies and how they could be applied in the marketplace for airport safety. I grew up outside of a small town in Erie, Pennsylvania. My dad was a steel worker and I had an interest to fly. Started flying at 15. It was difficult to get your license, baling hay for $1 an hour and trying to cover flying costs. So I joined the Air Force and I was enlisted for 10 years. Went to night school with Embry-Riddle, got my degree, a bachelor's in aeronautics, and was fortunate right after getting out of active duty after 10 years, was hired as an assistant airport manager for an airport in South Carolina. And then I was a deputy commissioner for an airport in upstate New York. And what brought me to Florida was managing an airport right here in St. Pete, Clearwater, which then led into starting the business to manufacture products that were, I felt needed to be improved upon. I had read some about the air races, the Cleveland air races, obviously from a historical standpoint, the Miami races here in Florida. My CPA had introduced me to a couple of owners of NASCAR, and the interest was how NASCAR has been able to use vehicles as a marketing platform, which as a small business owner, was trying to find new ways of being competitive in marketing our company. I had learned about the Formula One air racing. It was really the first attraction, and we were intentionally looking to buy an older Formula One, which now is owned by one of the racers, number 66. We had found that aircraft and we were going to use it as a trade show platform. We weren't going to have any interest to race. The aircraft, we were going to put our technology and use it as a marketing billboard, traveling to the trade shows that we do, because when you go to a trade show, after seeing 4 or 5 different booths, if it's 150 exhibitors like we can be involved in, they all start looking the same. So I was looking for something that would stand out. Smokey basically had called up and introduced himself as the president at that time of Formula One and wanted to know if I planned on racing, and that PRS, Pylon Rookie School, was starting in June, and was I planning to be there? And I said sure, but I had an intention to race, but they had a suggestion for us to consider the race for us. But our first year, although we weren't able to race, it turned out to be even a better experience because we were able to do a lot of introductions to other racers. Tom, as I mentioned, we were at PRS for Formula One. We met on the bus. He was looking for a racer himself, and as I mentioned, we were looking for a marketing platform. I didn't get to race for that first year, but after about mid-spring of the following year, Tom had called me and asked if I would let him race Invictus. And it made perfect sense because I had already seen his qualifications. He's above par on safety. He's very disciplined as a pilot, and it made a perfect sense for us to go for the gold with Invictus with him at the stick. I had brought one of our friction testers, and our friction tester measures the braking action, or the mu value, the friction coefficient on that runway surface. What I wanted to try to find out which lane was the fastest, and we already knew in order to beat Steve that we had to get off the deck fast, which we knew we could. So the airport manager allowed us to go out at about 4:30 the morning of the race, and I was to demonstrate our friction tester. So in taking the friction values of that lane, we were able to find out that the friction value was 4 to 6 mus lower, 3 feet from where he would normally start. So if he moved 3 feet, that surface, which was less friction, less tire grab, which is what we want. We don't want high friction for launch. We want to be just slick taking off. And whether or not that was a contributing factor, I don't know, but I'd like to think it had some to play with. It's a certain personality to try to be successful, to accomplish, once you're involved, to take it seriously, not just because from a safety standpoint, which is always the first priority, but once you get into the competitive mode, that's what you want to be able to do. So I think once you get into Reno, that competitiveness by its own nature brings you out to want to try to do your best. And whether or not it's you as the pilot, the owner, the crew, in my view, that it's an embedded sensation once you're at Reno to win. I think Formula One is the hardest class to compete in because once you arrive, you're constantly working on an airplane. The jet class, when we made the decision that's a class we wanted to be a part of, the same drive, the same determination fell into place. We kept the same team, and we ended up winning the silver, but it's always about being in the gold. And so when we won that silver, Tom and I looked at each other and we didn't even think it twice. We're going to forfeit it, and we want to be in the gold race because that's where we want to be. When we were there the first year, and I was hoping to race, and our pilot felt that he wouldn't have the mental stamina to be able to race in Formula One, so he told me that morning of quals that he wouldn't be racing Formula One. Well, I wasn't qualified, and we had two other racers in the class, and it was determined that we just wanted to keep a nice, for the interest of the Formula One class, don't make any changes. So Invictus sat on the hangar floor, looking good. I was able to take different roles. And Smokey came up and said, we need somebody to do the announcing for Formula One to add some color. Would you be interested? I said, sure, I'd be happy to contribute. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with Frank, enjoyed working with the crew for doing the announcing. And then the following year, I would say winning last year in Formula One, there was no better experience than being part of the announcing team as you see your aircraft, your airplane that you own, finish across the finish line, leaves you speechless as an owner and also as an announcer when you end up winning that class. But this year, I was asked and happy to do it with the jet class. The difference between announcing I found between Formula One, you're doing 200 miles an hour. You can pretty much do a steady cadence to do the announcing. Although Frank's not here to speak for himself, in the jet class, you are talking fast because they're doing 500 plus miles an hour on the track, and by the time you explain a particular maneuver, they've already done a lap. It's different than the announcing. To talk fast, keep the audience engaged, keep them informed, I think is extremely helpful. Explain what's happening on the track, and that's the value I thought I brought in announcing. And I think it's time for me to, from a ground support, from an owner support, to try to see if I can race as a competitor.